Hello. Okay. Hey, Kirsten. How are you? Yes, everyone comment hello so that I know there's actually people watching. So, yeah, I'm super excited to talk about this tonight. Although, okay, this is the very first time that I have ever streamed anything as a host. So, this is going to be strange, but we'll see if it works. Also, I couldn't get my split screen with my slides to work. So if you want, there is a link in the video description, and it has the link to my Google Drive where it's got the Google Slides. So if you want to follow along that way, that would be great. Or you can just access them later for notes. So, hi Debbie, hi Kirsty, hi Pam. Good to see you all. So, yeah, might just wait a couple minutes, see if anyone else pops in. I was very excited. I got it going right on time. Hey, Tina. So, yeah, I actually did so much preparation for this. So, I'm very excited and I hope you guys are ready to participate because we're all going to be making an escape room together. And I maybe could do this on my own, but it's a lot easier when I have other people helping. So, yeah. Right? And again, anyone who's joined, I do have slides in the description. So if you want to access that to follow along, you can do that. So, yeah. So everyone who's in here, have you done escape rooms before? Have you tried to design an escape room before? Anyone? No? Is this a no then? That's okay. Hopefully, this will be a good intro for that. I'll go through, I've sat in on a few escape room design classes and done some lecturing on the topic, so hopefully, I have some good information to share. Oh, Tina, so you did try to design one? Or is that you played an escape room? Oh, there we go. Okay, good. That's amazing. So we have some people with some experience. That's great. Okay. I love that. I love it. Because let me tell you, the very first escape room that I ever designed was for a convention. And it was, I look back now and I think, here are all the mistakes I made, and not necessarily mistakes. And it's very different if you're making an escape room for friends or for family versus making an escape room for the public to play. And I probably should not have started quite so big. So, all right, I guess I will just get started. And anyone else who wants to drop in after we've started can do that. So, ooh, wait. No, the campers abducted by alien cats escape room. That sounds amazing. Okay, Tina, I feel like I'm going to need to play that at some point because that's fantastic. Like, I don't know that would want to escape the alien cats though. That's fantastic. I love it. But, okay, so I'm Shannon McDowell. I'm a board game and puzzle designer. So, and the last few years, I've been working at Wilfrid Laurier University, which is in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. And I've been doing research on cultural bias in escape rooms. So basically, how to make escape rooms accessible for the largest variety of people who would be playing it all over the world. And this is because I was a member of, well, I was hired to help with the Red Bull Escape Room World Championship, which happened in 2019, because they had teams from, I think, 21 or 22 different countries, and they wanted to make sure that the escape room didn't have any biases that would impede the efforts of a team from a particular country. So that's what I've been doing the last few years. And as a result of that, I have a few papers coming out on escape room design, and I have some videos out there, some like educational videos. You can find all of that when the papers are published, and links to the videos will all be on bgnlab.ca. So that's like Brantford Games Network lab.ca. So yeah, so that's me. I've also designed some escape room board games that I'm currently pitching around, and yeah, as well as a few live action escape rooms and puzzles for puzzle hunts and all of that stuff. So today what I'm going to talk about is some escape room theory, just some intro to escape room theory and puzzle design, some tips for making your own at-home escape room, and then we are all going to work together and collaboratively design an escape room. So hopefully this will all work out. This should be fun. Okay, so escape rooms. What are they? I'm sure people have at least heard of them, if not played them, but escape rooms, a definition is escape rooms are immersive experiences where players work together to complete a goal. Okay, so who thinks that that sounds really, really generic? Like immersive experiences where players work together to complete a goal. This is not an official definition, but I feel like there are so many types of puzzle games out there that are labeled as escape rooms that it is hard to come up with a firm definition of what an escape room is. So you've got escape rooms where they are really puzzle heavy, where you just go into a room and there's 100 puzzles, and how many puzzles can you solve in an hour? And that's called an escape room. You've got escape rooms that are very narrative heavy, where you are trying to figure out this story and you follow actors around and watch their interactions. And that's kind of an escape room. You've got rooms where you literally have to open the final door and escape. You've got rooms where instead you have to find something. You have rooms where you have to solve the mystery. So all of these are escape room games in the current definition. So really, when you're looking to make escape rooms for yourself or escape rooms at home, you can make it almost anything you want. It's essentially just games where people work together. Maybe they take on another persona, maybe they don't, but they're trying to complete a goal together. So that is, and the big thing about escape rooms is being live action. So escape room tabletop games are a lot of fun, but a lot of times it's just you're solving puzzles at your table. And what people love about escape rooms is the immersiveness and being able to be in a place and manipulate things with their hands and do physical activities that are just fun and something outside of what you would do in your normal life. Okay, so when you're designing escape rooms, your goal as a designer is to create a fair, playable, and enjoyable experience. So those are three things: fair, playable, enjoyable. What I try and tell new designers of puzzles is you're not fighting against the player, you're trying to work with the player. You are actually on the side of the player. You're not working against them. So you're trying to give the players a fun experience. You're not trying to stump them forever. I saw a meme today actually on an escape room enthusiast group where they said something along the lines of, oh, you have an escape rate of 10%? I'll make an escape room with an escape rate of 0%. And like, that's easy to do. If an escape room with an escape rate of 0%, just like give them one lock that has multiple digits and they get one try. Boom, you're stuck. You know, like, it's not hard to make a very difficult room because usually that means the room isn't fair for players. So what you want to make sure that you have are clear goals and rules. No outside knowledge, and targeted to your audience. Those are three main things that I would say to create a fair, playable, and enjoyable experience. So a clear goal and rules. Make sure before your players start playing that they know what they're trying to do. You know, what are they trying to open a door? Are they trying to retrieve something? Are they trying to find something? Are they trying to solve a mystery? Make sure they know what they're doing, because that will focus them on what they need to do in the room. As far as rules, this is especially important if you're doing it in your house. Tell them, you know, you don't need to break anything. So that bottle that has something in it doesn't need to be broken. Or this is how locks work. This is what you do when you think you've solved a puzzle. There's a lot of ways to go about that I'll be getting into later. So you want to make sure that the rules are clear, you know, so that players know where they're headed and what they need to do. And set expectations. No outside knowledge. So what this refers to in puzzles is everything that a player needs to solve the puzzle should be in the room. Now there's exceptions to this, but essentially, especially when you're making a public escape room for a lot of people to play, this was the subject of my research essentially, is you don't know what's common knowledge. What's common knowledge to you may not be common knowledge to everyone else in the world. So you can't rely on that. You can't rely on people being able to read cursive or read an analog clock. You can't rely on someone having English as a first language. So those types of things are generally something I recommend against in an escape room, unless you have clues in the room to help those people who don't have that knowledge. But here comes the third point, which is targeting your escape room to your audience. So no outside knowledge is really important when you're making a room for the public. But if you're targeting to your audience and you're doing it for your family or you're doing it for your friends, you can be very, very specific then in what you're targeting. So, you know, I've done an escape room based on a video game, and you very clearly required knowledge of a video game in order to solve the puzzles. Well, that's fine. There's lots of licensed escape rooms out there. But if you're doing games for family and friends, you can really hone in on what are their interests and make puzzles designed around those interests. It also makes people feel really smart when you've got puzzles where they're like, I know that random piece of Pokemon knowledge. And, you know, that's a great feeling when people feel like they can solve this puzzle because they have the knowledge. And you want to encourage that. Again, creating an enjoyable experience. So yeah, and feel free to type in the comments if you have any questions or anything you want to know. I'll try and answer as I'm going along. Okay, so the next thing I was going to talk about is elements of escape rooms. So what makes up an escape room? And the three main elements of escape rooms that I wanted to talk about were setting, puzzles or challenges, and characters/narrative. So these are the things that I think are really important to think about when you're first starting to make your escape room. So the setting, where is the game set? How is the setting indicated? When it's in your house, you know, do you have props, or, you know, how have you indicated that this setting is somewhere other than your house? You know, I managed to collect a ton of ridiculous props to be like, we are in this era. So for example, I have this old phone, and be like, look, we are in the past. But this is a lot of fun for a period game if I'm trying to do something like that. So you could also, when you're thinking about setting, like, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But you can always adjust and use different things to convey that setting. Like, think about other senses other than sight. Think about the smells or the sound or the lighting. You know, turning off lights and only having ambient lighting could be really nice for a creepy horror game. Smells, like light a candle or use air freshener that has a scent that you want. If you're trying to do a pirate theme, maybe like a sea salt scented candle. Or sounds, there's lots of royalty-free tracks or, you know, different ambient noise tracks that you can find that can really take your escape room to the next level. So escape room is an immersive experience, so you want to engage all your senses in that. So for puzzles and challenges, puzzles, you know what those are. I'm going to go into more detail about those later. But activities in an escape room don't have to be puzzles. They can also be different physical challenges or fun activities. So especially when you're doing it for family and friends, you know, make sure that your puzzles and challenges are fun. You don't want them sitting at a table for half an hour trying to solve a math problem. You know, that's not, although maybe they would find that fun, who knows? But in general, I wouldn't find that fun in an escape room. So, but you can also have physical challenges. If you're doing an escape room for younger children, have like a little obstacle course where they have to, you know, follow footsteps or jump over barriers, and then completing that could be a puzzle that they need to do as part of the escape room. I've definitely done an escape room where we had to walk over sand on a thin rope. So we were like balancing on this rope as we walked down this corridor over sand, and it was supposed to be like a lava pit. And if you fell off, you could just walk to the end. But it was a lot of fun, and it made it really immersive that we had to do this physical challenge. That same room also had a slide in it, which was also a lot of fun. I really enjoyed going down a slide as an adult in an escape room. And then, so the last element of escape rooms is characters or narrative. So when I'm talking about characters, I'm not talking about actors or people in your escape room, but I'm talking about who are the players. You know, who are they? Why are they in this room full of puzzles? Who put the puzzles there? You know, who designed all of these puzzles and put them there? That's all part of your story and the narrative of the escape room. So you want to really figure out what's the story. So players are trying to, maybe they're trying to find this spectacular gemstone that I have definitely used as a goal in escape rooms. If they're trying to find this gemstone, why? Why is this gemstone hidden? Why are the players the ones finding it? Who hid the gemstone? Why is it surrounded by puzzles? Like, these are all things that I guess you don't necessarily have to have, but it really takes your escape room to the next level and makes it more consistent and immersive for players. So again, that's like the first word. Escape rooms are immersive experiences. So to increase that immersion, it's all having everything in the escape room make sense within the room. And it's the same thing with puzzles too. You can have the puzzles make sense within the context of the room. Okay, moving on. How to structure your escape room. So this is what I call a puzzle map for one of my escape room board games. You also may hear it called a puzzle dependency chart. Probably more often a puzzle dependency chart, but I like using puzzle map. So all of the circles on this chart are locks or barriers to continuing in the game, and all the little diamonds are clues. So this is how I track where players will find the clues in the game, where they lead to locks, what locks need to be opened before players find more clues, and what order everything has to be done in. So there's lots of articles online and videos about how to make puzzle dependency charts. And you can tell with this one, there are a lot of streams coming down here, right? So this is not a linear game. This has a lot of different paths, and players can choose what path they're going down at any time. So there's also linear games that you can do, which would be essentially a straight line where players find a puzzle piece and clue. They use that to solve a puzzle. That puzzle, that gate, gives them access to more clues. They use those to solve another puzzle. So it would be straight down in a line rather than this, which is pretty spread out. So this game has 17, I believe, puzzles in it, by the way. So including a meta puzzle. And meta puzzles are where you take the results of multiple other puzzles. So maybe you unlock 4 boxes, and in each box is a piece of a different puzzle, and all 4 of those come together to do a final puzzle. So those can be a lot of fun because then it really feels like you're building towards something in the game. But yeah, so structuring your escape room, the biggest thing to make sure of is that players are getting the components and the clues they need in the right order. So you want to make sure that they have the clues they need to unlock that lock and nothing is backed up. You don't want a clue they need to unlock a lock hidden under that lock, because that wouldn't work too well. All right, types of puzzles. So puzzles, it is so hard to categorize puzzles, but there are a lot of different types. I'm just going to briefly talk through a few different types here. So you have physical puzzles. Those are probably the most fun, and well, I find them the most fun. They're the most fun for kids because it allows you to manipulate objects, take actual physical components and move them. So whether that's making a machine work, turning a wheel, maybe building something, physical puzzles where it's not necessarily what you'd think of as a puzzle. Even, well, I guess like even a jigsaw puzzle is almost more of a physical puzzle. Observation puzzles. So those are ones where you view something in the room and you don't necessarily need to find it. You don't need to manipulate it at all. You just see something and then you can use that to solve a puzzle. So an example of this one, we designed a room that had a lock that was a series of dots in a square, and players had to trace a pattern on the lock in order to open that door. There was evidence elsewhere in the room of this repeating symbol all over the place, and it was essentially a logo. Players had to realize, oh, this repeating symbol makes sense in the context of the story, that it would be the answer to the lock, and then use that, trace that symbol on the lock in order to open it. So that's kind of an observation puzzle. They didn't necessarily have to do anything, they just had to notice something in the room. There's cryptography puzzles. So those are codes. And codes can be just about anything. You can use icons as codes. You can use like Braille or Morse code. You can use other codes like Pigpen is a code, or you can use just some more standard. There's lots and lots out there. Problem with codes is generally you have to provide a key for people to use to decode them. But you can also do some really interesting things with cryptography. I've done codes using colors before, which was a lot of fun. It's actually one of my favorite puzzles, which I'm not showing on here because this is going to be public, and that puzzle is actually in a game. So, math puzzles. Like I said, there are ways to do math puzzles that are fun, using recipes and using counting objects so that it doesn't seem so much like math. But I have seen math puzzles in rooms, although not as often recently. But there's interesting ways you can do that by giving players a whole bunch of numbers, and they have to use those numbers to add up to different amounts. So how do they divide up those numbers? Things like that. You can, depending on what your theme is, you can make that make sense. If it's, in a engineering office or some sort of security office or lab or something like that, then places where that kind of math would make sense. There's also logic puzzles. So those are ones that, like Sudoku is a logic puzzle, and the ones where you have the person in the red house does not own a dog, and this person does not live in the blue house, and where you have to figure out who lives in which house and what pet do they own. Those are logic puzzles. So again, there are interesting ways that you can incorporate those into a room. If they're just pen and paper puzzles, not quite as interesting. Okay, so getting into designing puzzles, I'm just gonna run through this pretty quickly. So what you want to ask yourself first when you start with a puzzle, why is the puzzle there? So how does the puzzle connect to the narrative? How does the puzzle interact with the story? Who made this puzzle and why was it put in the escape room? Why does a player have to solve it to continue on? If you look up, Scott Nicholson has a paper where he talks about Ask Why. And Ask Why in escape rooms is how you make the story consistent. It's a really great paper to read if you're looking at designing escape rooms and you want a good narrative. How puzzles fit into that narrative is super important for like a high quality escape room. Also, so when you're designing a puzzle, I always start with the end of the puzzle. So what's the answer to the puzzle? And a lot of times you're really constrained in the answer. Maybe you want a particular word that is a theme that makes sense with the theme. Maybe you have a 4-digit lock, and so you need a 4-digit number. So there's some sort of constraint. Not always, but a lot of times there's a constraint, and it's easiest for me to start with the end state and work backwards from there to the start state. This is also how you can adjust how easy your puzzles are. And I always say that your puzzles will always be harder than you think they are. Always. If you start with one version of a puzzle, once you have the first playtest, you will have to change it because it will always be harder. But from your start state, you can make your puzzle easier by including more information. So again, like think of a Sudoku as an example. The fewer numbers there are, the harder the puzzle is. But when you've got multiple numbers in a block, then it becomes easier to fill in the rest of those numbers that are there. And then the third component to designing puzzles is figuring out the rules and components for each of the puzzles. So what makes up the clues for the puzzle? What do the players use to solve it? Do they know what they can use to solve this puzzle? How do you tell players about the rules of the puzzle? This is where you can use feedback and signposting to help players. So feedback is telling players along the way, giving indications that they're on the right track. So that is why typically if you have a answer using letters, it becomes a word, because that is a version of feedback. Players know they're on the right track when their answer makes a word. It's the same thing with Sudoku. When you you get an entire box filled and it works, you know you're on the right track to finishing the puzzle. And signposting is helping players figure out what they need to do to solve the puzzle and giving them a step in the right direction. So one of the examples I used for signposting recently in a paper was there was an escape room that had a scent puzzle. So you were trying to figure out the scent of camel dung. Yes, camel dung. And if you didn't have any experience with camel dung, you would not know that scent. Just, this doesn't smell great, but I don't know what it is. So the suggestion was to put a hitching post with a saddle blanket somewhere else in the room that also smelled like that. And that is signposting. So when players come across that smell later in the game, they're like, oh, that went with the camel earlier. So that's one way of signposting, is just helping your players along the way. And a lot of times signposting is very subtle. It could be a spotlight on an important part of the game that players don't realize that they're attracted to, but that's where the light is, so they go there first, and then that's where the puzzle is. Okay, so that's essentially, it's very hard to actually give instructions on how to design a puzzle itself, because every puzzle is so different, and it really depends on what the story is and what your intention is with it. I will say, if you want some more information on the background of puzzles, check out Puzzlecraft, which is a book by Mike Selinker and Thomas Snyder, I believe. I may have gotten that wrong. But it is great for the background of theory, and it's mostly paper puzzles like crosswords and cryptograms and stuff like that. But they do a really great job at giving some of the background theory of making puzzles, and that can help you out more so than I have time for in this little workshop. All right, so now we're going into the exciting part, which is tips for home games. So if you want to make games for family or friends in your house or in your backyard, anything like that, here are some tips I have. So first one is locks. Where we're going, we don't need locks. So you don't have to have locks in your escape room. You really don't. If you want to go out and buy a whole bunch of combination locks, sure, that's fine. Just make sure that they have different combinations. So example, have a 3-number lock, a 4-number lock, and a 5-number lock. Don't have 10 million 4-digit locks, because then that becomes very frustrating trying to figure out which lock the answer goes to. But you don't even have to have locks, because maybe your room is more like a scavenger hunt where you're trying to find specific things and then fit them together. Maybe you are the lock, because if you're the one who has designed the room, maybe you can play a character in the room. That's a lot of fun. You know, oh, hey, we've entered Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory and we want to stop him from making Frankenstein, but oh, hey, look, there's Igor. And Igor tells you when you're doing the right thing or not. That's easy enough. Have the players come running back to you and it's like, we discovered this answer, is it right? And then you can give them the next part, the next clue for the next puzzle. So that's always an option. You don't need to spend a lot of money to make an escape room. So identifying in-game items is also important when you're doing it at home, because unless you're going to clear out an entire room, you've got lots of stuff in your house, right? You know, it's very difficult to figure out for players what is part of the game and what isn't. So what you can do is you can use sticky notes on objects to identify that they're part of the game. I like these little things. So these are little dot stickers that you can get at, you know, the dollar store or at an office supply store, and stick these on objects in the room that are part of the game. And that allows players to know right off the bat what's part of the game and what's not. Define your game space. So it's like I said, tell players in advance, we're using only the dining room, or we are using the kitchen and the living room, but you don't need to open up any cupboards. No furniture needs to be moved, or, you know, don't roll up the rug. Okay, yeah, Pam said she taped off the area on the floor so players knew everything inside the tape was in play. Right, exactly. You want to define your game space. If you want, you can throw sheets over shelves and furniture that are not part of the game. Sometimes that can even, if you're going for a dark space, that can add more atmosphere too. But yeah, make sure players know in advance what's in play and what isn't. Also, customize. That's the best part. If you want to buy specific props for your game, or even just for decor for your game, go for it. That's a lot of fun. If you want to have a room that's a specific theme, go all out. Bring everything in your house. I don't know, we have so many toys and board games in this house. I could probably do a full-on board game escape room, no problem. And that it's just fun. Customize it. Make it to your friends and family's interests. That's the best part about doing an escape room at home, is making it fun for them. Specific tips I had for designing for children. Searching puzzles. Those kids love searching puzzles, and they're really, really good at them. So that's a fun way, like if you hide Easter eggs and such in the spring, or have scavenger hunts, kids love searching for things. That's why, you know, if you've got a room full of a whole bunch of stuff, you know, having dots and having them go searching, or go search for all the yellow Post-it notes, or, you know, or you're looking for 9 Easter eggs that have things hidden inside them. Those kind of things kids are great at, and they love it. Even if you're bringing kids to real life escape rooms, let them do the searching, because they will find everything for you. Second, designing for children, educational puzzles. Anyone who's doing like game schooling or anything like that, you can definitely make educational escape rooms. But what you want to do is incorporate the things that kids are learning into the puzzles, not just a quizzing and, okay, when did this event happen in history? And the answer is the date. Yeah, that's not great. That's basically just trivia and memorization. But if you're doing something, so one of my favorite examples is, say you're going into a witch's hut and you're mixing up a potion. Then, but you need green slime or something for this potion, okay? But all you have are vials that have like red, yellow, and blue in them. How do you get a green? That's a great way for kids that are learning the color wheel to say, oh, I need to mix the yellow and the blue, and then I get a green to put in this potion. So things like that, and you can really use the alphabet and counting and those types of skills, along with, social studies, history, science, all of that can be incorporated into puzzles. And linear. I mentioned earlier, having multi-path games and linear. If you have like 2 or 3 kids that are going to be doing the game together, definitely linear. One puzzle at a time. Don't try and make it overly complicated. It just works better, and it's easier to just go from one to the other. I would say the same if you've got fewer people. Multi-path puzzles are good if you've got maybe 3 or 4 adults or more working on a game. The more people you have, the more paths of puzzles you definitely want. But then again, those are more complicated to design too. So, okay. That is basically my background in theory for this. So, who wants to design an escape room together? Now, this is going to be a very small escape room. We don't have a ton of time to do this, but we can at least start in the process of how I start by designing escape rooms, and maybe we'll get one puzzle done. We'll see. Okay, so I have my handy dandy whiteboard. So this is where we're going to start, and we're going to start with brainstorming. So now this is where I need your help. So my first step in creating an escape room is always, what is the setting? So where is this escape room going to be set? I'm looking for ideas here. I will pick the one that I like the most. So let's see. Anyone? Currently I have made escape rooms set in a paleontologist's tent, in an art museum, in a school, in a candy factory, at a carnival, in fictional worlds. All right, Christina said on a pirate ship. Okay, I like it. Let's do a pirate ship. So I'll write this down. All right, so we have a pirate ship. Too late. Everyone else is... Oh, in a fishbowl. That's a good one too. All right. These are some good ideas. We may have to come back to them. I like the pirate ship though. All right. So now we're brainstorming. What would you find in a pirate ship? Oh, we have some support for cemetery here. Okay, so that's the next part. What would you find in a pirate ship? And actually, you almost would think that I'd plan this because I have a little treasure chest on the table with me, which, by the way, you can find at a dollar store. So, what do you find in a pirate ship? Well, I might as well write that down. Treasure chest. I see cannons. That's great. Barrels of ale are maybe not family friendly, but We'll go with barrels, rope, jewels. Great, great, fantastic ideas. Jewels, telescope. Spyglass. Great. Okay, I've got one that no one has said yet, which is a treasure map. Oh, and a ship's wheel, steering wheel. Great, great. So there's my list. I started writing the plank. Ooh. Especially if you have a swimming pool in your backyard, making your players walk the plank would be a fantastic idea. Now I want to do that. I don't know if I know anyone with a swimming pool, but... Knots, yep, with the rope. Knots would be a good puzzle. I have had a puzzle where I had to tie knots in a rope before. It was actually very annoying, but maybe if it's not timed, that could be a good puzzle. Okay, so let's go with what we've got. So we have the pirate ship, we have our setting, we have all of the pieces that we might find in a pirate ship. This is always how I start. When I started doing my first escape room board game, ooh, flags, also good, escape room board game in a candy factory, I wrote out this huge list of all kinds of things that you would find in a candy factory. And then whenever I was stuck for puzzle ideas, I would go back to that list because these are the items that are going to make up your puzzles. And this is why a pirate ship is pretty good, because there's a lot of different things that you can use in that. So the next step is figuring out what is the player's goal. What are they trying to do on this pirate ship? So this is where we figure out what is the story. You know, who are the players? What are they trying to do? What's their goal? And who made all of these ridiculous puzzles that are in the way of them accomplishing their goal? So that's the story that we're trying to figure out now. So, you know, are players pirates who are trying to do something on this ship? Are they maybe Navy sailors who have wandered in and captured the ship for some reason? Are they scuba divers who have discovered a wreck of this pirate ship? You know? Anyone have any ideas? And then it's also figuring out what are they trying to get? Get the ship sailing again. Okay, so that's an idea. So it's a broken ship and you need to fix it to get it sailing again. All right. That's a good idea. That might be a tough one to do in your house, just because that getting the ship sailing again, that I can see requiring a whole bunch of big physical puzzles. Like, that makes me want to repair the deck and hoist the sails and get everything in its proper place. And that might be a bit tough to do in your living room, but it's a good idea. Find the loot. Find the captain's favorite hat before the big pirate dance tonight. A vote for the sunken ship and getting it seaworthy again. Okay. All right, so I feel like we've got a lot of... Yep, Yeah, and Pam suggested you only have an hour of oxygen in the tank, so that gives you your time limit too to complete it. Sure. And if you've got more or less time, okay, so in this case, just for the sake of finishing this up quickly, we're going to go with players are scuba divers who have found this sunken pirate ship. And I don't know that you can make a sunken pirate ship seaworthy again. I like the idea of that. That could be played with. But in this case, I think we're going to go with you want to find the treasure. Just because I already have an idea for a puzzle for that, and so it's easy. But I definitely encourage the making the sunken ship seaworthy again, because that's a fun idea. But all the puzzles I can think of for that are really big, and I'm trying to think if I can translate this. Okay, yes, we can do this. All right, so players are scuba divers who have found a sunken pirate ship, and they're trying to make it seaworthy again. Okay, great. So in that case, you don't necessarily even have structured puzzles. Instead, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get players to reassemble the ship and put it back together. So that's actually a lot of fun because it can be very narratively focused. So some ideas I have for this to do in your house is use Lego or a model ship. So I'm thinking of, like, if you've ever played, actually this could work too. If you've ever played Forbidden Desert, where you have to assemble the airship in order to win the game. So the board game Forbidden Desert. You can do something like that, where there are various things underwater. You have to find the pieces to get the ship together again, because of course the ship is broken apart as it's fallen under the water. So I'm thinking, so how would you do that with these different components? So one example could be, so we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to talk through some ideas for puzzles that could be put together for this. So this is great because you don't actually need someone to have set the puzzles, because you're not really doing puzzles, you're just assembling the ship and finding the different pieces. So for example, you could very easily have a tripod standing at the front of the room or wherever your blocked out ship is. So, and that represents the steering wheel, but wait, there's no wheel on there. So the wheel has broken off. Well, in that case, it becomes maybe a searching puzzle. So somewhere in the room, you have a circular object. Maybe you've got a hula hoop, a small hula hoop that you have painted brown or black to match the tripod. And then somewhere else, maybe there's Velcro around the edges of the hula hoop. So that's interesting. So then players would see that and say, oh, well, we're still missing something. So maybe this is our wheel, but we're missing it. And they have to find all the sticks in other places in the room that also have Velcro and attach it so that they make the wheel with the spokes in order to steer the ship. So there's one puzzle idea, and that's basically all searching. But then players have to realize, oh, because there's like Velcro on here, or maybe they get rope and they have to tie it on with rope. That gives them the signposting that they're not done yet. They still need to find more things in order to make this work. So there's that idea. Maybe they need to build the mast back up. So in that case, you could do that with round pails or containers and stack them on top of each other, but maybe they can only stack in a particular order. So in this case, you could use different shaped blocks or different components, or maybe color them. That's always a fun puzzle, especially if you're working with kids. So maybe you've got I would probably use ice cream containers or something for this, like leftover containers from food products. And then you can have the bottom be the same color as the floor, but the top of the container be red. And then the next container on top is maybe red on the bottom and yellow on the top. And then the next container is yellow on the bottom and green on the top. And you can do something like that where players then need to match the colors to make the mast and build it all the way up to the top. So things like that. That's a really fun idea that you could actually have a lot of fun with. Yeah, I don't know a lot about ships, so now I would have to do more research. But the same type of thing you could have with the rope that was here, rope and knots. You could have areas in the room that have like those screws that I don't know that you would necessarily want to screw something into the wall, but you could have things in the room with like metal loops on them, and you need to tie the rope between those loops in the right order in order to get it ready. And as a clue for players doing this, you can have a diagram of the ship and what the room is supposed to look like after, so that they would know that, okay, this tripod is where the wheel is supposed to be, and this circle on the floor is where the mast needs to be built. And we need to have rope going from here to here to here. So yeah, and you can even do that with, various pirate trivia. Whose pirate ship was this? Maybe they find objects that belong to a specific pirate, and then their knowledge of that pirate is how they put everything back together and solve the puzzles. So yeah, so really, this is a really good start to a fun escape room that you can do at home. And if someone ever comes up with an idea for an escape room where they have someone walk the plank into a pool as part of a challenge, I want to see the video of that, because that's amazing. And I think that's a great idea. My goodness, even having to jump into a kiddie pool full of balls, a little ball pit, that would be a lot of fun for an escape room. I've been trying for ages to get an escape room that has a ball pit in it. Although, maybe not with the pandemic going on, but it would be fun. So, any questions? We're coming up on 10 o'clock, so that went by really fast. Is there anything else you want to know? Any questions you have? I'll remind everyone now that if you enjoyed this, you should subscribe to the Board Game Broadscast YouTube channel, and you've joined the group on Facebook if you're watching this, so that's great. But yeah, subscribe for more amazing board game content. But yeah, anyone else have thoughts or comments or questions in the last minute that we have? I hope everyone learned something and that this was helpful. And feel free to reach out to me if you have me as a friend on Facebook or on Twitter. I'm at Shannon Creates on Twitter, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. I also have a pinned thread on Twitter that has a whole bunch of tips for designing escape room board games. So I forget who it was. Someone mentioned earlier that they were interested in escape room tabletop games. And so that is where I have consolidated all my tips from the ones that I've made. So, oh, thanks everyone. I'm glad you had fun. So, this was fun. I could have talked so much longer on escape rooms. And yes, I wish, Pam, it has been so long since I've brainstormed with people too. And I wish that we had more time and we could have actually gone in and made that escape room, because I knew that we wouldn't have time to do a whole one, but that was pretty great. So, all right, I hope everyone has a good rest of your evening. And yeah, it was fun chatting with you, and thanks for being here. Okay, bye.